The 2023 Pokemon TCG World Championships have come and gone. Congratulations to all of the winners, and kudos to everybody that partook in this past season, whether you played at locals, regionals, nationals, or international championships, or at the World Championships. You should be proud of what you achieved and hope that you can continue to put in the work and do better next year. I did not partake in anything this past season, but I'm looking to partake in my first regionals this season later this year. But enough about me. Let's talk about the World Championship decks, as early next year we are going to get 4 decks that commemorate the 2023 World Championships. And I wanted to thank Mr. Empoleon 2010 for the idea for this video, and we are going to predict what the 4 decks will be from the 2023 World Championships that will be released in spring of 2024. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the World Championship decks. So every year since 2004, the Pokemon Company have released 4 decks that were used in the World Championships. They always take 2 decks from the Masters Division, which is like 18 and up, the Seniors Division, which is like teenagers, and then Junior Division is kids. Unfortunately, I don't know the actual age brackets off the top of my head, but it's by age bracket. It's 2 Masters decks, 1 Seniors deck, and 1 Juniors deck. And at least one of the decks that they release isn't the champion, because there's 4 decks, and theoretically you could pick the champion of each division, and then there's like the runner-up or something like that from the Masters Division. And in this example, we got Andre's Mew VMAX deck, which actually got top 8, and it was one of the decks picked, which is awesome. And then yeah, so that's kind of it. These are going to be released in spring 2024. They come out spring almost every year. I think there was a year where, yeah, during the pandemic they didn't release at least 1 set, possibly 2, when the World Championships were not happening. Anyhow, so there's a little bit of context for what we're working with here, and some more important notes. These decks are not tournament legal. The card backing is different so that they don't look like your standard Pokemon card. They look nice, but because the backing is different, they are not tournament legal, and you will not be able to use them at events. Also, you should know that all of the cards in the deck are non-holo. Even ultra rare cards like V and V Max cards that up until now have only been released as holo cards, they will be non-holo when you buy them in this championship deck. And I think one of the big things is if you play PTCG Live, which a number of people who watch this channel do, you do not get a code for the deck. This may change, so keep in mind this may change next year, but up until now they have always had different card backings, and you've never gotten a code to use these in the digital client. So I would expect that to be the same going forward. And for a number of people, that's going to be an absolute deal breaker. For me personally, that is a deal breaker at this point in my Pokemon TCG journey. But if you are a new player and you want an easy way of getting a top of the line deck at the time that these decks were played, then yeah, this is kind of a cool way of getting a tournament level deck on the cheap that you can play casually with your family or your friends. Some stores may let you play them in their local events. You'll have to see with them if that's okay with them. But also keep in mind that these decks have been used in the summer of 2023, and by the time we get to spring 2024, the meta could be wildly different, and these decks may not be relevant anymore. So keep that in mind as well. These are mostly for new players, casual players that want to have a championship level deck on the cheap. All right, so there's going to be 4 decks. I am going to make my predictions here, and I feel pretty confident about 3 out of 4 of them. And the first one that's obvious is Vance Kelly's Mew VMAX deck. Yes, we did get Andre's Mew VMAX deck last year, but Vance Kelly won the Masters division in a wild finals that came all the way down to the very end, and Vance's deck is pretty cool. It's got some unconventional text. I think Oricorio is a card that we have not really seen in Mew decks in a while, and it definitely helped out here in the tournament. In particular, the match against Azul, where Vance had it and Azul did not, and it was harder for Azul to get the KO. Kind of cool there. Also, lots of tech for some of the trickier matchups for Mew VMAX, including Gardevoir and Lost Box with the multiple Lost Cities and the Box of Disaster and the Crystal Cave as some really interesting techs to try and slow down those decks and even the odds. Again, congratulations to Vance, and yeah, you're definitely getting the World Championship deck treatment. My next pick is the second Masters deck, and I'm almost certain it's going to be Tord Reklev. Tord Reklev is considered by many as the greatest modern Pokemon TCG player of all time, arguably just the single greatest Pokemon TCG player of all time. They're the only player that has won every international championships. They've also won just a ton of other tournaments. And the only thing Tord has not won yet is the World Championships, and Tord was literally one turn away from getting it. He played an amazing match with this Gardevoir deck, and yeah, Gardevoir is a very great pick for this sort of line. Gardevoir is a very popular Pokemon. You can just put that on the front of the box, it will sell. You have to think about the marketability of these decks as well. Like, is the average consumer going to want to buy a deck that has Gardevoir on the front? Yes, same with Mew. And I think by the time this comes out, a lot of its main attackers will have rotated. A lot of big cards from this deck will have rotated, including the Zacians, including Brainwave Gardevoir, including Level Ball and Fog Crystal. But these cards are not tournament legal, so it doesn't even matter. And if you are looking for just a really strong deck to play casually, then this is an awesome one. Definitely also a big emphasis on evolutions, because you are evolving from Ralts all the way up to Gardevoir, and there's a lot of cool tricks in this deck, like the Luminion, Collapse Stadium, multiple reversal energies, and I think this is a great pick for the World Championship lineup. Now let's move over to the Seniors Division, where I think the pick is Gabriel Fernandez's Lugia deck. Lugia is another strong deck archetype. It was the most popular deck in Masters Division in Day 1. It unfortunately did not win the whole tournament, but it did very well. And in the Seniors Division, it won the championship. And what's unique about Gabriel's build is he went for a colorless build. We've got ourselves, there's no single strike package here. We're not seeing the Tyranitar or the Urshifu. Instead, we've got colorless attackers such as Snorlax, Weirdeer, and Slacking. Slacking as a really beefy attacker, hits for 260, but it only attacks depending on I can't remember if it's the even prizes or odd prizes, but you can play Path to the Peak to not only shut off that ability of Slacking that nerfs it, you can also slow down your opponents as well. And this is a very cool way of playing the Lugia deck. Congratulations, Gabriel. And the last one, this is from the Juniors Division, and I kind of flip-flopped on this, but I think that the deck that gets made is the runner-up Gabriel Borges Torres, with their Arceus Duraludon Umbreon deck. First off, no offense to Xiao Tongyen, who played phenomenally in this matchup. But I think the big difference here is that one, Lost Box is a very hard deck to play. In particular, it's the Kyogre version of Lost Box, which is an extremely hard deck to play. And I think because these decks are targeted a little more towards a casual audience, I think that the Lost Box is probably a little difficult to sell or for new players to play. On top of that, I just don't think it has the same shelf appeal as an Arceus Duraludon Umbreon deck, where you could put any of those three Pokemon on the box. I guess you could put Dragonite on there, and then you get a Dragonite and a Drapion. I don't know if they had Drapion in their deck, or a Kyogre. I just think that there's a little more, besides being easier to play, Gabriel's deck, that there's a little more star power in Gabriel's deck, which I think will give it the nod going forward. So here, I don't have Gabriel's exact list, so I just pulled a list off of Limitless. So we've got the 4/3 Arceus with the Umbreon and the Duraludon package as well. And yeah, this is a very cool deck archetype. I liked playing this when we tried this one out earlier this year, and I think that this would make a great pick as a World Championship deck. Again, no offense to Xiao Tongyan, but I do think this is probably the better of the two to pick for the World Championship slot, because it's a little more marketable, easier to sell on a shelf, and it is easier to play. That being said, a deck with Dragonite on the box could probably sell pretty well too. So that is my predictions for what the World Championship decks will be. I think Vance Kelly as Mew VMAX deck is a lock. I think Tord Reklev's Gardevoir deck is also a lock, not just because Gardevoir is super popular. Also, it's an opportunity to commemorate one of, if not the best player in Pokemon TCG history, who also has a relationship with Pokemon. He's done content for Pokemon in the past, so I think Tord is a lock. Gabriel Fernandez played amazing with Lugia, and Lugia V-Star, also a pretty marketable Pokemon that people will buy just by seeing the Lugia on the front of the package. And then I would say Gabriel's deck, the Gabriel Torres with the Arceus, Duraludon, Umbreon as the fourth pick. But in a scenario like this, I could see the Dragonite here, but again, I think that Lost Box is probably a little too difficult for the audience that would be picking up these types of decks. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on these World Championship decks. Are you excited for getting these decks, understanding the limitations of what these decks are and are not? Are you still planning on picking any of these up? Do you think that there are other decks that were in the championships that should be picked instead of the 4 that I chose? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments of this video. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. Some quick plugs before we get out of here. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and the platform formerly known as Twitter. You can find me on Twitch, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.